topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart.
Hello and welcome to It's Your Voice, the show that hosts enriching conversations in diversity. My name is Bahia Yaksan. I am a diversity educator and a core alignment coach, which means I support people, individuals, groups, organizations in identifying patterns that are harmful to them or others, often patterns of bias that we learned from our culture despite our best intentions. And I help people align what they really want to do with what really matters to them so we can step out of those patterns and cultivate new ones that are much more inclusive and create more belonging. If you're interested in looking some examples of some of the classes I teach, I also tailor for your organization. You can go to my website, which is knowwhatyouvantcoaching.wordpress.com. It's coaching and training. Tonight, I have a wonderful guest that I've known for a few years who always has a presence about her that's just so soothing and reassuring and I want to say enlightening. It reminds me like, oh yeah, I could be more conscientious. I could be kinder. I could be more calm. I could be more present. So Yin, please join me and I'll read your introduction after people who are watching can see your beautiful face. Hi.
Hi.
This is Yin Myo-Flores.
Myo-Flores.
If you don't, say that again, please. I'm sorry.
Myo-Flores. Myo. Like yo with the in front.
Oh, thank you for correcting me.
No problem.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful sound. So if you don't mind, we're going to read your introduction. Yin lives with her family in Davis, California, while two college kids pursue their higher education. Yin works as a substitute teacher and in her free times teaches mindfulness meditation and yoga classes to friends of all ages. And a little bit of family background. Shortly after the civil rights movement and uprising of 1988 in Myanmar, did I say that correctly? Myanmar?
Myanmar.
Yin's father won the immigration lottery, which is just like fascinating and so much behind that. With the hope of a better future for the younger generations, her dad sank ships in home country and journeyed forward to a new and strange land, America. Yin currently finds herself in a position to pursue post-baccalaureate education to become a teacher and deepen her own spiritual journey.
Thank you.
So, oh gosh, thank you. There's so many different things I want to ask you about, but I thought it'd be nice for the people watching or listening to hear what the transition to America was like when your family won the lottery. And I think you were a young teenager, right? And I just can't imagine what that must have meant to the family because there was an uprising and it was a fortunate thing to be able to get away. And it was a also known as People Power Uprising, a series of national protests and marches and riots. So I'm glad you were all safe. But can you tell us like what it was like to adjust to like how old you were, what it was like, how long it took? Just can you share some of that part of your life with us?
Sure. So, I've only born in Burma, born into a Burmese family. So with the kind of era that I was born into and growing up in, I didn't know anything about the outside world outside of the geography books. Like the media was not like how we have it today. There was very little outside information. Everything was like censored and controlled. And even if it was like a show in English, it's very much selected, So you get to get videos. I would say like I can't begin my story without like explaining a little bit of the world that I came to know as, a part of who I was. And so in Burma back in the mid 70s, leading up to the quadruple eight, we call it 8888, right? So that was a big significant date in our lives, without getting all political and emotional about it. But, like you don't know what you didn't know until, something different happened to you, something like a major life-changing event. And I was at the time 7th grade and still like a young adult, still figuring school, still trying to stay healthy and try to make friends and keep friends. That was the center of my world. But all this happened where everything felt like literally coming up in smokes and fires, and gunshots are not that far distant. So I guess it was a little like pretty much closed off, yet somewhat a blissful and sheltered world just shooken up into like uncertain, immediate future. So, but we had to survive, right? What other way to do it but to continue in those under those circumstances just to survive. So when the school shut down for 1 year, I stayed as a 7th grader. My life was on hold, but as a kid, you're like, yay, recess, but yeah, so that went on, felt like indefinitely. And being a studious kid, I was like, when is school happening? Like kind of like COVID now, like you just hold your breath thinking like it's a short-term thing, but then it kept going longer and longer until you're like, well, this is concerning to me. Like, what's my future education's going to be like? So I think that was one of the biggest driving force for my parents. I get a little choked up,
Yeah, understandable.
because yeah, like we had no imagination, at least for me, from like retrospectively thinking, didn't think about leaving to go anywhere. I haven't even visited any other places besides my little town and city, So I don't know how life has taken us onto this, journey that we didn't become a part of planning, So, but anyways, I think it was my uncle who turned in the application because my dad was just lagging because he didn't really want to go anywhere else, even though it was not good there. So he said, come on, brother, just sign it here. He filled out
Wow.
everything, and my dad's like, okay, fine, just to kind of keep you quiet. And then
Wow.
they submitted, and he won that immigration lottery. We called it lottery. I don't know if that's the same terminology now, but I think it's part of the foreign policies. They do that, I don't know much about, different politics or different policies, but so he won that. So he could come here if there's enough sponsorship here. So we were able to find sponsor to receive him here. And he came on his own first with just a small suitcase and less than like, I don't know, $100, and he was supposed to take a transit at San Francisco and then continue another leg to Houston, Texas, but it didn't happen. So he couldn't get connected to his sponsor from Houston, and because of there was no show, he's like, well, how do I continue, like I don't want to be stuck at the airport. So anyway, so he knew some friends in San Francisco, and they said, "Don't worry about it. Just come on over and stay with us until we figure this out." So my dad ended up staying in San Francisco, and that was when I was 14. And then a year later, the rest of the family, that's my mom and the three of us. I'm the oldest of the three siblings, and we came here. And first time ever flying on the airplane, or first time ever seeing an airplane in person.
Wow.
Yeah, so I literally wanted to run away that day.
Oh,
I couldn't leave my grandma. She was my
oh,
rock,
mm.
and it was, yeah. So I was like, how can I sneak out of the airport without my mom noticing? And
Oh,
I can just disappear, and they don't have a choice. They have to get on the airplane and go, and then I will figure it out later. So I did not want to come until I had to, like, how do you put your family through that? And then
mm,
so it was a hard last minute decision to stick with the family.
gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine how torn you must have felt. And you actually considered sticking with your grandmother instead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, she would have been happy, and I would have been happy to just say, like, okay, I'll see you guys later next time, go have your new life, and I'll stay with my grandma. She can take care of me.
Uh,
Yeah, in a 15-year-old's head or thinking, like, it was so hard to decide.
mm,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. And so you got on the plane, and
Hmm.
did you all land in San Francisco?
Yes, the smell, the the smell of the new country, right? Like, it does exist for the first time. And the high risers, like, your neck hurts just looking up. It's like it keeps
Wow.
going. So and then I threw up in the car. I've never been in a car that is going that fast on the freeway. Like, we stuck to a small town in where I grew up. So you have like old buses that goes like barely 10 miles per hour, 15 at most. So yeah, yeah. So it
Wow.
was, yeah, it was
And did,
impressive.
and I'm just so curious now, what did it smell like? Did it smell like food? Did it smell like pollution? Did it smell like airplane fumes? Do you remember? Like the smell of a new
No,
country? That's so interesting. Just
yeah,
different. Just
it's
just
different.
different. Yeah.
It's a combination of different because in Myanmar, in Burma, it is very humid and hot. So
Mm,
after not having returned home for quite some times, I remember the first time I landed back home in Burma, it felt like somebody just like, choked
mm,
you, right? Or like
mm,
squished your lungs a little bit or your throat a little bit. So opposite of that,
mm,
landing here, like it's like more open and
mm,
more um a little drier maybe.
mhm.
And I don't know how to pinpoint I can't put names to the type of smell that yeah, I can't describe it.
Okay, but it was very distinct, and you remember
Yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So the oldest, you were probably responsible. You probably felt responsible for siblings. So what was it like your first few months when you entered a school? Were you fluent in English already, or what was that like? That transition in that first year here for
Well,
you?
yeah, we didn't speak at all any other languages, not even other tribal languages in my whole entire life. So English was just from the books, as you take it as a, subject matter in school,
Hmm.
just written learning sentences and how to compose. And but I think the British school system was really good, that I felt like that foundational learning helped, even if it was from the books. But the speaking part, not at all. So when I mean, like literally within a few days of being in the country, we went straight to, um, oh no, maybe like after Thanksgiving break, because I remember it was November 19th.
Mm,
Um, I mean, you don't forget those days, you don't forget those numbers, right? So I think it must have been after the Thanksgiving holiday that we started school
mm,
at Newcomer High School on Fillmore in San Francisco.
mm,
So it was really like a shock, like everything is like new, just the way people think, the way people um, interact, the way people speak, you're just like sponge, just soaking it, observing, observing everybody, and trying to like just keep up, and in your head you're like thinking one way and talking, your inner dialogue is so busy, trying to make
wow.
sense of everything. Like, so it's funny how you can dream in different languages, like,
Mm,
and like that's another transition. Like, when do I start to think in English,
mhm.
so I don't remember exactly those things, but there's probably like a transition or like a tug of war between like Burmese internal dialogues going into English, but when it switch over, it just switch over. It doesn't want to go back unless you forces it to. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a description. And when we were talking earlier, you shared that like adjusting to a new country, whether it's from Burma to here or here to there or in the other two countries, it is a slow process. And can you talk more about, I don't know, just like the longevity of how long it took before you felt like you were American or that you belonged in America?
Mhm, mhm. I guess initially because it was under like I feel like as a young adult, I didn't have a whole lot of say, so there was a little bit of resentment,
Hmm.
even though I knew that hopefully in the long run it is supposed to pay off like it's supposed to pay off, better future, better education. I wouldn't know unless I had already had gone through, right? So I have to take their words for it. But so far it's all struggles, like, so I mean, I was very like not demanding when it comes to material things. I didn't feel insecure because I didn't have this or that, I mean, we were putting on old boots that we found on the street to crush cans to make extra money, to buy grocery, because my dad used to work at aviation, and like a food company where they deliver um, prepare foods to airlines. So he would have a bunch of cans that comes back from the airplanes. So he'll bring them home, and our job on the weekends or some evenings is to wear those shoes and just crush them so that we could put them in a big bag and take them to the recycling place and make extra money, So it's
That's
like
resourceful.
extra chores, extra responsibility to look after the younger ones. I didn't have like a lot of after school curriculum activities. One, because we couldn't afford it, and two, because I didn't know what they were or how to get to them, and plus limited transportations. And so a lot of reasons. And I try to hold on to who I am for the as long as I can,
Yeah.
so that I won't get sucked in, because I was intentional about not losing myself and what I
Mm,
had to sacrifice, So, so I think because of that first stage of like high school, and even when I got into UCD, that was my dream school. And because it reminded me a little bit about the climate in Burma. San
mm,
Francisco was always cold to me, always
yeah.
windy like today.
Yeah.
So I couldn't wait to leave the big city, you know, like I worked summer job at a law firm, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so lost in all this hustle, you know, and the downtown scene always busy, busy, nobody knows anybody. So that small town feel of Davis really made me feel at ease.
Mm.
So I had to come to school here, and it's warmer, like, you know, unlike San Francisco. So even after, so that's like about a decade now after school, you know, after all my undergrad schooling, and I
Mm-hmm.
still didn't feel like this was my home. And you think like after having roots down, put down, have your own families, you can relate through the kids, and you know, now we have two kids, young kids going through the Davis school system. Like, you know, you're always like that outside person,
Mm.
like, you know, just joining the team and the culture and the way of life. But nothing was anything wrong with it. You know, Davis is a very diverse and progressive and open-minded place to be at. I'm very grateful for that. It's just within me is still a lot of ties, or you know, emotional ties, like
Mm-hmm.
unfulfilled dreams about being a part of Burma, you know. So those held me back. And then the value, like core values, are different, you know.
Mm.
Not until recently, I have to say, that I don't know, there is a shift which makes me a big um like when people were wasteful, that was a big pet peeve for me, and that's what
Mm.
made me like not identify myself as an American, because we have so,
Mm.
you know. So not
Yeah.
until recently, when we start to recycle, when we start to be more resourceful and more protective of our planet, or our, you know, environment, and be simple and be conscientious in how we use our resources, like not until then, that's when the maybe like the shift happened too, like how I identify myself through those core values. So that's like probably 20 years later.
Mm.
So I was already 20 plus years, so it took me nearly 3 decades into my late mm, 30s, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah. And I don't know when it switched over one day, I felt more at ease calling myself, I'm at home. I have two homes. This is my home
Mm.
too. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm so moved by you sharing the vulnerability of, what it means to not feel home even when you've lived somewhere for more than a decade, another decade. And can you can you think of things that, since we're talking about in America, like what's some Americans did along the way that helped you feel more more secure, or helped you feel included, or helped you know that you belonged, or the opposite? I mean, I'm just thinking it's so good for us to think about how can we welcome people better,
I think,
or what you would have liked to happen that didn't happen.
mhm. I think not having a community, like a Burmese community closer to Davis,
Yeah.
was a big part of it. So when I
Yeah.
see, because you know, like without having that central place together, or to celebrate, you know, even if it is just like a potluck, simple, you know, or a holiday, you know, if you don't have that, that really makes it harder, you know. So I think I stay back here up until maybe about, I'm almost 50. So up until about 10 years ago, all the community-based events are in the Bay Area, you know? So I think that was a big game changer too. When we start to have a Buddhist monastery here in Sacramento, I felt like, oh my gosh, now like the two worlds are coming together. It's just, and then from the woodworks, like I don't know where all these people are coming from. They're just like coming
Oh,
out from nowhere, and we start to have a sense of belonging, like on top of a belonging, right? Then you feel like, okay, we're all in that similar boat, so it makes it a little bit easier to enjoy life in a blended way. You celebrate every American holiday. Like Christmas is my favorite holiday, like so, and then you get to do the other things too. So I think a lot of people in the Bay Area already have felt like they made a home here in this country, like um but again, I didn't want to stay over there because it's just like too big, and
mhm.
and and it was before my years, from the 70s and the 80s probably. So we do have a larger community, which I'm a part of too. But when it comes to me a little bit more, um, like a little bit more, what do you call it, culturally, and just seeing people that you relate to in your close vicinity is what makes it easier to make it home.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, that there's, in a way, nothing that can replace that. Like when that's missing, that is just missing.
Yeah.
And when you have community from your own original community, what a huge difference. What a game changer that is.
Hmm.
Well, gosh, that's a really good segue. And I don't know if I mentioned at the top of the show that you decided to, for this, the name of this episode is Gifting the Gentle Influence of Buddhism Wherever I Am.
Hmm.
And it's it's a nice transition to that topic if you want to talk about that, how much Buddhism means to you, how much your community means to you, and how you integrate it in your work with youth and your teaching and your mindfulness practice.
I think that might be another big reason how I can, make wherever I am home.
Mm,
When I start to realize that, oh, I do have the foundation that I was given. The foundation is with me, not
mm,
where I left behind, because I grew up with my grandma a lot, and my parents were busy trying to raise children and make, a living, and educate us and all that. So the spiritual foundation came a lot from just the community. In the summer we will have elders who would teach us different chantings or different prayers, and different rituals. I mean, as a kid, I learned through just different celebrations and holidays, and my grandma was a big part of that. She would take us to the temples and the pagodas and the monasteries. So all of that was instilled in me early on, but because I came here and there was a purpose behind us coming here, so I had to achieve those life goals, so my
mm,
focus shifted into just adulting and starting my own family. So I kind of lost touch with my spiritual um, roots,
mm-hmm,
so that there was the big part that I felt was like a bit of a void that I couldn't pinpoint at first, but then it came back to me. Like it's good to take trips back to where you came from, because those gave you answers.
mm,
Those gave you
mm,
answers to, well, how to complete your pieces of puzzles in life. So
mm,
that happened, and so I um kind of start filling that void with what I remembered and what I practiced, how my grandma used to, uh, give me that contentment and peace,
Mm.
when things were stressful, even as a child, just having certain routine in the background happening. So I kind of want to share that to the youth today, because, no matter where you are, no matter how old you are, there's some form of stress, there's some form of pressures and expectations to do school, to do well in school, or to, um, stay healthy and safe, right? Nowadays, that's a big um, task. And then also to just grow up a little bit faster. You
Mm.
know, our pace is very short, fast. So kids have to take in so much, and there's so much other distractions that take our attention away from this very present moment. So all those makes us like less and less aware of where we are within ourselves, with our emotions and with our thoughts and with who we are in nature. So I was lucky enough to have that. So I want to share that with kids who may not know that they're stressed out or they're struggling, So just as simple as like just breathing and sensing their toes, or sensing their, fingertips, or just whatever they're doing at the moment, just to take the moment to ground themselves. It's simple yet very effective tool. So I want to share it, to anyone who may be open to hearing it or practicing it.
That's I love the phrase you use. The foundation is within me. That's
Yeah.
that's really, even if we forget it, like you remembered, or you found it, or going back jogged it back up.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a beautiful, just a beautiful thought, and the possibility is like, oh, my foundation is within me, no matter where I am.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and when did you take up yoga? When did you start learning and practicing, and then eventually teaching yoga?
I don't, I am so bad with like years. I guess I remember more in sequential of events rather than like the year. So
Sure.
I think it's probably, I was just practicing yoga in my 20s. Well, I tried it first when I was pregnant, because that back then prenatal yoga was like a huge thing. I was like, I will try it, if it helps me get through the labor pains. So, so I was like, I hated it, like, this is not exercise. Like, it's so, it's so slow. Like, what is this? So, so I said, no, wait, no more. And then, like, it's so funny how you just go like 180-degree at a different time later in life. I'm like, yoga. Okay, let me do it again. And I just fell in love with it. And so, yeah, I went to a gym, local gym here in town, and my teacher that I love was saying, you should teach. And I go, no, 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 you teach. I do. I will not be a teacher, and especially in yoga. And then she's like, you're so good at it. You teach. And after like some people telling me that, I was like, okay, I don't know why people tell me to teach. But I said, okay, I'll teach for my mom, because she needs some like movement in her life with a lot of her limitations, health concerns. But
Hmm.
so I took the classes, the training, so that I can properly know and safely teach my mom. A teacher of one student. That was my goal. And my mom did not want to become my student. So I give up on that. And then I said, okay, mom, as long as you're walking, I'm happy. And so after that, I started volunteering, because, I was so subconscious. Like, I'm not, like, it's funny, like, teaching is always calling me, but I kept pushing and saying no. I I mean, my grandpa was a teacher, I know it's in me, in my veins, but since teaching takes so much um, sacrifices, like in Burmese, there's 3 words that describes teachers. What is it? Sedana means like your goodwill, right?
Mm,
Your goodwill towards your students, so that they can become more knowledgeable, better people, like teaching them everything, morals, the books, the science, all that.
mm,
So your goodwill heartedness to your students, that's one natural criteria of a teacher. And then the second was uh, you're good at it. You're very, it's your natural talent. You're talented at teaching. So
mm,
that is a part of who a teacher is. You can just simply teach and people get it, like so. And then that's your passion. In a way, you could say that it's a passion. And then the other one is a sacrifice. Like,
mm.
like there's not a teacher in the world that get paid a little and yet spend hours and hours, right, doing whatever they need to do to get a student, better the next day, in all ways. So I was like, I don't know if I can fit all that in my life.
All 3 criteria.
Yeah, all the teachers that I had been lucky enough to have known are like big-hearted individuals, and they sacrifice so much. Like I've been lucky to have had great role models. It's a mix of everything, right? Like good teachers and bad teachers too. But so when I know that I won't be able to fill their shoes if I were to live up to that standard, I cannot be a great teacher, but it
Mm,
keeps circling me and pushing me in that direction. So I started as a yoga teacher volunteering at the elementary schools and middle schools, kind of like low pressure, not so much expectations. And then and then I just worked my way up to teaching at studios and at the gyms. And it was great because it helped me be a stay-home mom while the kids were, growing up, and get to be a part of their classrooms. And they had a great time when I come in to teach them yoga. They just go nuts. We had
oh,
so much fun. Yeah. Yeah. Now I teach Buddhism. So every summer I go to summer camp, Buddhist summer camp in Half Moon Bay. It's like a week long, and the littles go day school, so they will get picked up and they'll get dropped off. But if you're 9 years old and up, they can stay on campus and stay the whole weekend. They get to eat well. Oh my gosh, we spoil them with lots of great home cooked meals.
mm,
Their social, skills flourish year after year. They come back, can't wait to meet their friends again. So it's just instilling that sense of community, and teaching them, the values from the Buddhist perspective, and also teaching them how to lean onto your community when there is life struggles. So, from the Buddhist perspective. So, of course, we teach them Buddhist teachings and meditations, and, how to get along and how to be patient and how to not give into so much cravings, because they have to give up their phones for a week, which is really hard for some kids.
mm.
So yeah, both winter retreat and also summer camp, I volunteer there.
Wow. So do you work with the littles, or do you work with the ones that 9 and up?
So when I first started, I was a parent volunteer in the kitchen, and they moved me quickly out of the kitchen to the classroom again. Go teach.
You cannot get away from it. The universe is saying you are a teacher.
I was like, I can happily just cut fruits and vegetables and help you guys. So I said, okay, I'll try. And then I taught the first year. And I think I started the first year teaching about middle school kids. So that's why I'm like really connected to middle school kids. You know, they're old enough and I can make them think deeper,
Mm-hmm.
challenge them a little bit, and also have a little bit higher expectations, you know, placed on them. Yet you can still be like super friendly with them, and still they're still like little kids at heart, you know. So it's like sweet little middle spot where I connect really well with. So mine, they have like primary classes, and then they have advanced classes. No, primary and then basic classes and then advanced. So the advanced 3 classes for like say high school and college kids, and I teach the middle advanced class for like a little bit older thinker but not too sophisticated thinkers yet.
Wow. Are there some of the people who attend, are people from different communities coming? Or generally people who grew up in a Buddhist family? Or like, what are the demographics of the people who come to the summer Buddhist camp, or send their kids to the summer Buddhist camp or the winter camp?
I mean, majority of our student body is from uh, Burmese families, maybe second or third generation children. But we do have some biracial marriages and their children. We've had a mix of Caucasians and Asians, some just Caucasians. Their friends get brought in because their friends are coming. We've had interracial marriage of African Americans and Burmese, and their little children come too, and of course their friends come too. So it's a little bit a small percentage of other demographics too, but majority is like a Burmese backgrounds, Asian backgrounds.
Okay, that's interesting. I love the friends coming in like,
Yeah.
wow, why are you like the way, can I go to the camp?
Yeah, like, what did you do this summer? I went to Buddhist camp. Oh, can I come too? Oh, they got great food. They play, they do other activities. We have a bonfire at the end to celebrate.
Oh,
We go on a beach walk with a huge beach ball. They get to play. So it's
oh,
just all around fun, you know? Yeah.
my goodness. And what do you, I'm just going to put you on the spot. What are some of the, like, you think like, if you had to pick, like, I don't know, 1, 2, or 3 sort of primary Buddhist teachings that the kids just latch onto and internalize, what would you say they take away in terms of a Buddhist learning, a Buddhist teaching?
I think if they can understand, and they do most of it, that Buddhism is not a religion. Like it may have rituals and, you know, different celebrations and culturally embedded religious, you know, ceremonies, but it's not a religion like they understand. Like, you know, they're familiar with lots of exposure, right? Like they learn it in school, they've seen it, their friends, but what they know after having gone through a few years of, you know, camp and train, like learning and teaching, they know that Buddhism doesn't have a whole lot of like titles, you know, a whole lot of um, doctrine, you know, attached to it. It's more of like they can explain to you how a Buddhist person will live life. So if they can say or believe that, okay, like it is okay to accept everybody, you know, however they are, whoever they are, whatever they call them, as long as it is not harmful to each other, to the other person, and to yourself, then whatever we say and do and think towards those individuals and ourselves, if it is not harmful, and if it is doing something good like friendship or sharing, you know, or being respectful, then that's in the simplest way. that's how a Buddhist person would act and behave. So, it's just not doing something that could be harmful to yourself or to other people around you. It doesn't matter who or what. So they feel like it could include everybody and anybody. So they learn to be a little bit more patient and pause. We teach them to take a breather, like when we're meditating, because there's so many ways that we can interpret a situation, and our perceptions get formed, right? So when they see the sequence of like interactions and exposures and contact, and they have to, or they naturally react in a certain way based on their past or current experiences, they have a choice to repeat the cycle in a certain way or to take a pause. And then, is it harmful to me or to the other person? Then make a response rather than react. So at least on my level, we can teach that, and then they can try to practice it. And then year after year, it makes sense to them a little bit more. At the lower level, it's just like learning Buddha stories, like how to be nice to each other, like at just different ages, they would take in at the capacity their, development can handle. So it's not so much of a religion. It's just being mindful of what other people think and want and see and perceive, and your own, and finding that balance in between.
Lovely. Thank you for describing that, and just conveying those concepts. Like, guess what, Yin? You are a teacher.
I guess so.
And I love underneath your name, for people who aren't able to view, I just want to say that you have 3 words underneath your name: life, love, and balance. And I just want to give you the opportunity to share your closing thoughts. We have about 3 minutes. Do you want to sort of close, wrap up your conversation?
Yeah. I think like having gone through the process of, opening the sense of belonging to the world, and now in this age, the world is getting more connected and wider. I think there's less and less definement of who we are and where we call home, so I really hope that my experience as a guest becoming a host, in this country, to our future immigrants or future neighbors or students, or just our community members, whether it be Burmese or Buddhists or Americans or anywhere, like any other next person, I really hope that we can keep our hearts open, because it's already like, important to make yourself more comfortable wherever you are. But if you are removed by force from where then it's harder. So we have to leave that door always open, so that other people feel like, oh, there's an open door, then you're not so closed up in your heart or in your mind or in your perceptions about other people. And then they will feel a little bit closer to, oh, this could be where I belong to. And I think I love it when I see, communities changing, becoming more diverse. And I hope to strengthen our own too, for not just us, for future generations. So the Sacramento monastery that I'm a part of is always, welcoming of anybody if anybody's interested in learning more about Buddhism or celebrations, or just say hello. So yeah, I just want to keep the door open.
Well, thank you, Yin Myo-Flores. Thank you so much. Beautiful conversation, beautiful thoughts, and I'll put in the notes the name of the Buddhist Center you just invited people to check out if they want to follow up on that. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all the viewers and listeners, and thank you to our wonderful engineer Rebel and to our producer Dean. And may tune in next Wednesday, 8 p.m. everyone, to Talk 4TV or w4cy.com, and may we all have enriching conversations in diversity this week.
Thank you so much.
Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the